websites or profiles on websites. But yeah, we'll get onto that story a little bit later in the show. But Arsenal tonight, I want to break this down because there may be people that will look at Arsenal this evening and say, well, great. They weren't at their liquid best. The way they've been cutting through teams of late, this wasn't it. There may be Arsenal fans that go, I'm annoyed that it had to go to penalties. We went 1-0 up and we couldn't break Porto down. And my response to those individuals is you're genuinely, your lack of understanding of football is showing here. Or you have an agenda against Arteta or against Arsenal. And I say that because you have to first and foremost give credit to Porto, a team with a brilliant heritage and history in this tournament, a very strong and resilient team who there's an expression in fighting that is styles make fights. And I think the way Porto play football is all wrong for Arsenal. They're a low block team, but with really high quality players, and they are drilled impeccably well. They make it very, very difficult for their opponents. And I think they could do this to a number of teams. Now, somebody else might play them, Liverpool, and beat them 3 or 4-0. But that's why you can't always compare results based on, well, how did we do versus you? Man United beat Aston Villa away from home this year. That doesn't make us better than Arsenal. That is never how football has really been gauged. So I want to praise Porto first and foremost. Pepe at the back at 41 was majestic. I thought Costa in goal was absolutely out of this world. Pepe in the middle, what a player. I know he missed the penalty, but I think it's Wandale. The way he kept one of the best wingers in the world in Bukayo Saka quiet all game deserves credit. And I know when you're watching it as a gooner, you can view it as, I wish we were better. But what you also have to do as a football fan is look at it and say, well, how good were our opponents? And Porto were very good across both legs. And I did think that over both games, it was such a great football match. Good attacks, good saves, good defending at times. It's really high quality football match. If there'd have been more mistakes from both teams defensively, there would have probably been more goals. But even when lines were broken, there were opportunities, or Tavia or Pepe, somebody was getting blocks in. It was such a great game for me as a neutral to watch tonight. Both teams deserve a huge round of applause for that. But I'll tell you why Arsenal fans should be happy. I'll tell you why they should be very, very happy tonight. Demons put to bed. It has been, and I repeat, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, 14 years, almost 1.5 decades since Arsenal have progressed from the last 16 to the quarterfinals or the last 8. And you could feel that in the air. You could hear it through the TV screens. I'm sure everybody at the game could feel it. Game started off with all the songs and all the cheering and the sort of booing of the opponents. As that first half rolled on, you heard the nervousness start to creep in. And this is when people talk about, does football heritage really help you? The answer is yes. That's it. Straight up, simple. Football heritage can help you. Because watch the Porto fans, they were different. They were far more relaxed than Arsenal. You watch Real Madrid, if they're up against it, in this year's tournament, last year's tournament, their fans stay relatively relaxed. They're 3 or 4-0 down, they're not. But they stay relatively relaxed because they know how to handle the situation. Arsenal of old would have been able to have done that. But even though these players and this manager and a lot of people to do with this club were not even at the Emirates the last time they were even in the Champions League, those demons live on. Those demons will continue to haunt dressing rooms, the fans and their attitude towards it, memories behind the scenes, backroom staff that have been at the club 20 odd years, just little whispers in the corridor, little murmurs here. Can we get through it? And it was really important. And I said, I didn't quite get my prediction right tonight. I said it would be a close game. I said it'd be a nervy game. I thought Arsenal would win it 2-0. They were fairly close to doing that in this game, but they got through nevertheless. But the one thing that I said to LB and to Dan Potts earlier today, and I stand by, and I say now, and I push out now, and that is, I think if they win this game, Arsenal, the growth, the experience, the feel-good factor, and everything that surrounds that is going to pay them huge dividends this season, next season, and the year after. Breaking that hoodoo of going out at this stage from 2010 onwards, winning a really tough close knockout game where even in the Europa League under Mikel Arteta, those tough Europa League games that could have gone either way didn't go either way. They always went against Arsenal. This is a gateway moment. This is a breakthrough moment in European football for Arsenal. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Champions League this year. There's still a lot of development and a lot of know-how to be injected, instilled, some of it purchased and placed into this Arsenal team. But getting through this difficult hurdle against a team that I think is all wrong for Arsenal, that they play in that low block, they give you very little space, they're very, very physical and experienced. And you put all that together, and yes, this isn't a 5-0 drumming. This wasn't a liquid gold performance that will live on in the memory of football fans around the world forever. But that isn't what football is always about. And you will have your naysayers, you will have your detractors tonight who will say that we scraped through, so therefore it's bad. They will say they're angry regardless. They'll rip into Saka because he wasn't very good, but give almost no credit to how impeccably well Porto set up to stop him. This is typical in the Champions League, and it's happened to some of the very best players that this tournament has ever had the honor of having graced their fields. I thought it was an impeccable night for Arsenal. When it comes to individual players, look, I have to start with this one guy because he's been criticized for a long time. Does he turn up in big games? Martin Odegaard. And as a brilliant league gunner I pointed out about him a few weeks ago, he said that not all big games are against the biggest sides. You have to review the circumstance. And we've seen that in a few Premier League games recently where he has stood up, where he has been counted when Arsenal had to win. And those performances and wins have put you top of the league. And tonight, 1-0 down, haven't for 14 years got out of this round or stage of European football. He stepped up, a captain's performance. And the creativity that led to the goal was a thing of beauty. The first touch, how he shimmied round a player, the dummy of the first pass, the accuracy and the weight of the ball that cut through that Porto defense and set up Trossard, who still had a lot to do. A very, very good finish from Trossard. A brilliant night for him. A brilliant night for Arteta as someone that bought him in that January window. What a signing he has been when you look at the price of him, really. But that's Odegaard's goal, and that for me is what I'd call a proper assist. There's loads of ways of assisting goals, but that is just sumptuous. And I think if you look at Arsenal players in years gone by, the Ozils and the Dennis Bergkamps, that was at their level. That was at their level. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. So I thought he was impeccable tonight. I thought Declan Rice in the middle put in another stellar showing. Jorginho behind him. His legs were going towards the end of the game. He's obviously in his 30s. He's getting a little bit older. Midfield's a hard position. But I thought Jorginho and Declan Rice did a very, very good job indeed in those central areas. And, of course, we've got to shout out Raya today because he didn't have a great deal to do, but he did pull off a couple of good saves in the game from some counter-attacks. But even more importantly was his performance in that penalty shootout. 2 saves, nearly 3. He took so much pressure off the penalty takers by making those saves. And honestly, it was an impeccable and a world-class performance from Arsenal in that penalty shootout. All of their penalties were sublime. The goalkeeper was absolutely brilliant indeed. Maybe a little fortuitous that they won both of the coin tosses and it was down at their end. And I read a stat once that 67% of penalty shootout winners take the first penalty. So to be by your own fans and to take the first penalty that's the only element that was lucky. The rest of it was absolutely pure class. And Arsenal find themselves into the next round. Arsenal find themselves now, look, you're a couple of games away now from being in the final. Let's see who they get. You're only going to get hard teams from this point. Barcelona went through tonight. You've got Barca in this. Real Madrid are through. Obviously, Man City, Bayern Munich, PSG. I might admit 2 more teams are going to go through tomorrow. So you're only going to get very good to world-class teams now. This tournament is going to absolutely be lit up. And I want to say congratulations to Arsenal for making it through. And one of the other little reasons as well, again, we need the coefficient points. You never know. My team might come 5th, and 5th place might be enough to get in this competition next year. So I kind of want all the English teams. I very rarely want English teams to do well in Europe, but I do this year. Let's go to some of your super chats before I bring out Dio, before I bring out Matt and Sard. This here says,